Welcome to History Lesson 76. Last time we got together, we were talking about John Greenleaf Whittier. Today, we're going to be talking about Louisa May Alcott. Remember, John Greenleaf Whittier and Louisa May Alcott were authors. John Greenleaf Whittier wrote poems. Let's talk about what Louisa May Alcott wrote. If you don't have your books yet, please pause the video, go grab your history book, and bring it back and open up to page 214. Now that you have your history book, I want you to look at these words that I have written here. Tomboy, Massachusetts, published, Underground Railroad, Nurse, and Little Women. All these words have to do with Louisa May Alcott. So, as we are learning about Louisa, she was one of those girls that enjoyed being outside running and playing, and she was often called a tomboy. But she did not let those words disturb her or bring her down. Her family lived most of their lives in Massachusetts. She had a mother and a father, and they had four daughters. There was Anna, Louisa, Beth, and Abba May. Now, their mother, Abby or Abba Alcott, was a very kind person. She was willing to sit down and listen to each one of her girls, and she was very wise. Her father, which was Bronson Alcott, was a teacher. She or he had different ways or thought of different ideas to teach children. A lot of times people didn't agree with it, and he would not be able to stay a teacher. And as a result, he ended up losing his job. So they were very poor as Louisa was growing up. Although they were very poor, they were not afraid to lend a helping hand to those around them that were in need. Even though they may not have had anything else other than milk and bread, even when a neighbor would ask them for their milk and bread because they had nothing, the Alcott girls were willing to give away what they had in order to help somebody else in need. So the winters in Massachusetts were very, very cold. And during those times, remember, we're in the early America times, there was only one fireplace that was used to heat up the home. So in Massachusetts, it gets very, very cold in the winter. So you have to have wood in order to be able to burn the fire in order to warm your house so that nobody's cold. Now, as they were living in their house with the fire burning, there was only one piece of wood left. They got a knock on the door, and somebody, a neighbor, had asked, saying, "We don't have any wood. Is there any wood for that you can give us so that we can be warm in our homes as well?" And without hesitation, Louisa's father gave them their last piece of wood. So the question is, how were they going to stay warm now? And later on that same night, there was another knock on the door. Another neighbor came and said, "Hey, I have some extra wood, and I thought maybe you could use it." And Bronson Alcott, which is Louisa's father, said, "You see, when the Lord knows that we need something, he will provide it for us." So Louisa, being the tomboy that she was, did enjoy writing. And she thought about and did publish one of her stories to a publisher. And as a result, her story was published in a magazine, and she was only 16 years old. Now, that was the first of many short stories that she had written. Now, during the Civil War, Louisa May Alcott decided to work as a Union nurse in Washington, D.C., or in a Union hospital. She would go and help the soldiers by reading letters from loved ones, changing bandages, or feeding the patients. Now, as the years went by, um, Louisa Alcott wrote dozens of different stories, and her publisher asked her, "Hey, why don't you write a story about girls?" And she was a tomboy. She was like, "Girls? I'd rather write about boys, not girls." But then she remembered her sisters. Remember, she was one of four sisters. So she said, "My sisters, of course, I'll write about them." So that's exactly what she did. And she changed the names of her sisters in her story. And the story title she gave it was Little Women. Now we know that story still today. It was written by Louisa May Alcott. It was the story of her family and how poor they were growing up. Now, it was a huge success, and as a result, she was able to pay all of her family's bills and take care of her family. And what a joy that was. So, we even still today are able to read Little Women, amongst other books that were written by Louisa May Alcott. She wrote more books like Little Men or Joe's Boys. And then Louisa passed 2 days after her father had passed. She was buried in Massachusetts, and since then, we now get to enjoy reading and learning about how her family survived being very poor. Now, I want you to read pages 214 all the way to page 219. Then I want you to look on Google Classroom for some questions to check your understanding about your reading of Louisa May Alcott. Happy studying.